the sounds of explosions, which I guess are those flash grenade things.
And what was
And
your reaction when law enforcement started to push in and people had to flee? I know some people complained about being hit with rubber bullets and the like. You had to flee too, right? Because whether it was tear gas or some sort of gas with an irritant was bothering you as well.
So I was completely stunned, really, because I never would have imagined that I would look up and literally see an entire line of police officers all in this heavy military gear, all black, and these shields, literally pushing and shoving and driving people off of the church patio. Like, I looked up and there they were. And I was literally helping wipe away tears in people's eyes and try to tend to them and help them on the grounds. And suddenly the police were pushing us back, and the people were dropping to the ground, afraid. And they were, when they'd hear those flash sounds, they thought they were being shot, and people were running at us. And literally at some point, when I looked up and the police were so close, I had to just grab some things and run.
And what you said that holy ground was turned into a battleground yesterday, and then ultimately, obviously, it was because President Trump wanted to stand in front of St. John's and hold up a Bible. He didn't read from it. He didn't go in and pray, as many presidents have, and I believe he has in the past. It was just for a photo op, and the White House then put out a video minutes later, essentially. What was your response? That's what this was all about, was so President Trump could stand in front of St. John's and hold a Bible?
So I was already stunned and shocked and deeply, deeply offended that they had taken what had become holy ground and had been holy ground for 200 years and literally desecrated it, turned it into not a metaphorical battleground, but a literal battleground with those officers and those heavily armed, and just the aggression and the hostility and the innocent protesters, driving them off of church property for whatever reason. At the time, I didn't even know why. That already desecrated that, already turned holy ground into a literal battleground. I could not believe, literally, what people were texting me as I was going back to my car saying, is the president really there? And I could still hear the flashbangs, and people were texting me saying, he's walking across the park. I could not believe it. I was saying, no, that must be sort of stock photos. No, I'm sure that's not happening. I couldn't believe it. And when I realized that people had been hurt and terrified for a political stunt, offended hardly begins to describe how I feel. I feel it was a sacrilege for all people of all faiths that are grounded in peacefulness and loving, compassion, reconciliation, wholeness, healing, forgiveness, peace, love, compassion, and to push innocent people out. And people who, by the way, were protesting their violent treatment by the government was sickening. And to stand in front of a church and somehow claim that as his right and privilege and culture, and holding the Bible, was a sacrilege, an absolute sacrilege. And I'm not joking when I say I would rather the president live by those words of healing, wholeness, compassion, love, peace, generosity, care for those who have been marginalized. For him to turn that book into a prop, for him to turn that holy ground into a battleground, for him to turn that holy ground into a photo op is is a sacrilege. And I offended begins to describe how I feel about it. I feel heartbroken, and the images of people running and crying and dropping to the ground because they thought police were shooting real bullets instead of rubber bullets was heart-wrenching. And yeah, I breathed in some of that. I was coughing, and my seminarian tears were streaming down her eyes as we were trying to rinse out people's eyes. But why shouldn't I put up with that? Like that is what a person of faith does, right? You show up and you show up in service of peace. And my brothers and sisters who have been marginalized and killed and incarcerated and undereducated and underestimated and overlooked for generation upon generation. And for that man to take that witness of presence and peacefulness and shoot tear gas or pepper spray or whatever those canisters were, and those little exploding things and rubber bullets and the show of force was not the kind of faith I have.
Reverend Jenny Gervasi, thank you so much. We appreciate your time today and your candor.